Welcome to Court Helicopter Explainer, where we are focusing on one question. Are you a tenant? Are you staying in somebody's building and you're paying rent after every 30 days? 90% of employees in towns, all the towns in Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa, Kisii, Nyamira, all employees are tenants. And each tenant is required to pay rent. But on top of rent, there is a contentious issue: deposit. Have you paid rent plus deposit? Then when you want to leave, you tell the landlord, me, I'll be leaving 31st of March. But my deposit, I'll be using my deposit. The landlord tells you that is rubbish. The deposit is not for you to use. That is one issue. Number two, have you been told to pay rent plus 2 months deposit or 3 months deposit or 1 month deposit equivalent to the rent that you're paying? What does the law govern the question of deposit for rent? Free. Have you been told to pay a deposit for electricity, a deposit for water, a deposit for security, and lastly, what is called service charge for those ones living in the upmarket apartments? Where does the landlord or the landlady have these powers from? And where is your recourse whenever there is a problem that emanates from this? So today, we bring you 2 episodes. One of the rent deposit, and 2, where do you go whenever there is a dispute about rent? The rent can be for a commercial business. Do you have a barber shop? Do you have a spa? Do you have a nails place? Do you have a boutique? Where will you go to whenever there is a dispute that is there? So Wakil Omari brings you the thunder that deposit is not for you to use when you are living. You live in a building of somebody by paying rent. What is the purpose of deposit? The deposit by law means that the day you will leave the premise, if there is damage to property, if you damaged the property, you spoiled the cistern of the toilet, the water heater, you spoiled the water heater, you cooked and burned a cupboard, you broke something small, you have completely, instead of sleeping, not touching the bed, you come at night drunk, you step your nyayo, your footsteps are all over the house. That damage, after you enter the building, before you enter the building, the landlord is required to maintain that house, repaint it, make it habitable. The day you leave, any damage that you caused, the landlord will repair his building based on the deposit that you have. So that is the first reason, legal for. 2, the deposit should go for unpaid rent, service charges, or other contractual payments. If you have arrears of rent, that deposit will offset those arrears of rent. If you are staying in a place where you are supposed to pay service charge, what is service charge? Service charge is wherever you are staying, very many, there are people who clean. the stairs. If you are staying in a gorofa, there is electricity for the security lights. There are watchmen for the gate if you are staying in a gated community. If there's a compound, there are cleaners to clean that compound. All these things, if the water, you didn't have an independent water meter or electricity meter, then that is cut from the service charge. If you fail to pay the service charge, the deposit that you deposited will be used to do that, and any other contractual payments depending on the agreement that you entered. Fourth, if there are outstanding utility bills, for example, water bills, electricity, and garbage collection fees, the deposit is supposed to cover for this. You are not supposed to be given the deposit, or you are not going to use deposit to live in somebody's building. Lastly, if there is any breach of tenancy terms, including if you just terminate your lease and you run away because you are an Iranian or you are an American being looked for, and you say, no, the war has started, me, I'm running away. You run away. The lease had a clause of you are going to stay there for 2 years, or if you want to terminate, you give a 2 months notice, and you do not give a 2 months notice. The deposit is the one that is going to be used to deal with issues. So the question is, at what time do you know that the deposit will not be refunded? The law is very clear that deposit, you cannot use deposit to live in a rental premise. At the time you are entering the building, one thing that you need to know is the terms of the deposit. Some tenants are told to pay 1 month deposit. Some tenants are told to pay 2 months deposit or 3 months deposit. So the day you will leave, this deposit is supposed to be done like that. The questions people are asking: so if the deposit is not to be used as rent, what happens with that deposit? The day you leave, the landlord and you are supposed to assess the damage that you have done to her house or his house. The repairs, for example, you gave a deposit of 10,000 shillings. The repairs, remember, you must repaint the building. Every time a tenant enters into a house, the landlord must paint the building. Anytime you leave, you must return the building to the position it was. You'll have to repaint and do the repairs. So if you pay 10,000 shillings, the landlord and you will assess the repairs will cost 2,500. So the landlord owes you 7,500. He must refund the balance. The net after deductions must be refunded to you. Many tenants have never been refunded the deposit. So now you know, if you are not refunded your deposit, remember I said we shall be teaching you where do you take such disputes, which tribunal do you take such disputes, because they don't go to the normal courts of the Republic of Kenya. So the refund is the net of what damages you have done to that house. There are people who keep the houses neat, especially women. They do not interfere with the structures of the house. So at the time she's leaving, she would not even be told to paint the house because she has kept the house as hers. So she will be refunded her 10,000 deposit. But landlords will create something, stories. So now you know that deposit is to be refunded to you. That deposit of electricity and utilities, you will check the meter. If you have not consumed water or you have paid all the water, you are supposed to be refunded whatever deposit that you have. That is why the English word is a deposit. The others are rents. Rent is for usage. Deposit is just deposited in the event you do not live properly that house. Then the landlord will deduct your deposit. Sometimes the landlord will find that you deposited 10,000 shillings. The damage in the house. You are this guy who hosts parties and bashes. You come with your people, you break chairs, you break tables, you break glasses, you do all sorts of things. Then the damages are 60,000 shillings. You deposited 10,000 shillings as deposit. The landlord will pursue you for the 50,000 shillings extra, and that will be a civil debt to be taken before the court. What if, we'll be looking in the next episode, if you fail to pay rent, are landlords allowed to remove the door? Are landlords allowed to remove the roof? Are landlords allowed to bring bees and throw the bees from the window so that you must escape? So, or water, close the toilets and close the bathrooms. We shall be looking at failure to pay rent. What is the mechanisms to enforce that? Okili, Danstan Omari now has told you, don't go fighting with the landlord because that you want to live with the deposit. The deposit is not for you to use as rent. So maintain people's property, learn to live in people's houses with respect, because Court Helicopter has a duty to teach you on how to live in a civil manner. Wakili Danstan Omari.